So we have arrived at the Jack Daniel's Distillery. Parking is right across the street, and there's a shuttle that'll come and pick you up and take you right on over to the Jack Daniel's Distillery for your tour. It's a beautiful sunny day, so join us as we go traveling with the Q's.
Learn about how to make whiskey, and you're going to sip some whiskey at the end, and then you can buy some whiskey before you leave, and then if you go into town and eat, maybe eating a little whiskey today. So it's kind of strange, but the county went dry in 1909, so that's just history. 1909 Prohibition started. It didn't happen for everybody in 1909. It was a little sooner for us. So when Prohibition hit us here in Tennessee, we went dry, meaning no making whiskey, no selling whiskey, no saloons, no taverns, none of that. But that's changed a bit over time. On paper, we are a dry county in 2023, still dry. But there's always an exception to the rule, and we found the exceptions to the rule. 1995, we were given special permission to open the White Rabbit Bottle Shop and sell souvenir bottles of this whiskey that we make. It's a bottle shop, not a liquor store. So there's whiskey in every bottle. It's a precious little gift you get to take home. All of our whiskey is made here. This is our distillery. This is where we normally operate day and night. They've been doing a little repair on some of our copper and the whiskey still, so we've not made whiskey in a couple of weeks due to that. Otherwise, we're operating day and night. That whiskey doesn't get much sleep. So, and we appreciate your support. I've already had somebody tell me they've been drinking this stuff for quite a while, so we appreciate that. And leads to my next little loophole. We all get a pint bottle of whiskey the first Friday of every month. So when we get paid the first Friday of the month, we get a little pint bottle of Jack. We call it Good Friday. So there's perfect attendance on Good Friday. Somebody figured that out a long time ago and kept that tradition going. And then we started tasting tours in 2012. So now you can do a tour of the facility and then wrap it up with a little educational tasting at the end. When you start throwing words around like education, nobody argues that, so they let us do it. So it's still kind of new that we even get to sip whiskey on the tour. 2012 is when we started it. They've got two younger guys that have been training with them for about a year now to learn how to do what they do, because eventually Darren and Tracy are going to take a day off or retire or something. So they're making charcoal. It's kind of like a homemade Brita filter, if you want to think of it that way. So something that we do here at Jack is filter our whiskey. So a Tennessee sipping whiskey and a bourbon whiskey are really similar, but very different, because bourbon's not required to be charcoal filtered. A Tennessee whiskey is. So very similar, but very different. So what they do is take 4 ricks of wood or stacks of wood here, stack it under the hood. They douse the center of it with 140 proof right off the whiskey still. They call it whiskey for destruction. They keep a little can of it over there. They misspelled moonshine. It's 140 proof. White lightning, white dog, whatever you want to call it. They're going to douse the wood with that, light it on fire, let it burn about an hour and a half, and they've got a big mound of charcoal there. You're probably smelling yeast.
Yeah.
You're definitely going to feel the corn oil. It's nice and slick.
Can I have another one? I'll just open my mouth.
I can't do that. But I can
I'm about to turn and look around that way.
Just cup your hands and get a little bit. And y'all can taste it if you want to. For real, taste it if you want to. The whole reason that Jack left the farm where he grew up and came to this spot was because of the water. He just knew it was right for making whiskey. Make all the whiskey here. This is the one and only place in the world where Jack is made. There's not another Jack Daniel distillery out there. This is it. This is the heart of it all. So lucky we've never lost any of the finished whiskey to a fire or natural disaster. We've not lost any whiskey to a fire that we didn't start ourselves up at the Rickyard. But we do have 33 employees ready to go if that ever came up. Those barrel houses, those are both 7-story buildings that we're seeing from this view here. They'll have over 20,000 whiskey barrels sitting in them all the time. So we got about 3,000 acres, like I said, 94 barrel houses scattered across our property here, holding all y'all's whiskey, because this stuff's going over 170 countries. So got to keep it somewhere, and it's all right here around us. Now we're gonna head up to the Cave Spring. This is the whole reason we still make the whiskey here. Jack came here because he knew the water was perfect, and not much has changed. We eventually outgrew Mr. Jack's little office here and had to build a new one back in the 1950s. And now we feed our water over to the distillery so they can use it for cooking grain and making mash and making whiskey. And they even use the spring water to put out their fire up at the Rickyard. So the water that they're using over here in production is still coming from the Cave Spring. We just use a little more water than what they used to and make a little more whiskey than what they did. But this is the whole reason we still do it all right here. Limestone that we're standing under. This is Tennessee limestone, so it's going to filter the water. There's no iron in the water coming out of the spring. That iron in the water would turn your whiskey more of a dull gray or a cloudy black color over time. You don't want that. So it's iron free. It's clean. It's 56 degrees, very cold all year, and it's a promising water source. Jack Daniel came here in the 1880s, and this is where we made it ever since, except for during Prohibition. So we've been using the same water for over 140 years. So here it is. If you've ever tasted our, it's a family thing, just like with any family recipe. You want consistency. So every day we make it, we'll make it the best we can. That was Jack's motto there on the wall. That means you only use the best ingredients to make the best whiskey. So we're thankful that we've not had a big turnover in who's doing the tasting and the quality control and who's got their hand in any and everything going on around here. The brains behind the money, the paperwork, the finances, the figures, the things that happen in here. But Mr. Jack happened to come in early one morning. So they say that Jack came in just to grab some things out of the safe before heading out of town. Obviously, the safe is where important paperwork and money would have been kept. So Jack gets in here. He's all by himself. It's early in the morning. This was unusual. He was not the early bird. He was not the one that spent much time here. He couldn't get it open. We don't know if Jack forgot the combination or somebody changed it and didn't tell him, but either way, that safe would not open, and Jack got aggravated and kicked the door on the safe. He didn't know what he had done. He had broken his big toe. He busted up his foot. Infection set in. He saw the doctor a little too late. They started amputating that foot. Then he decided Lim needs to take over the business and start taking on responsibilities. I don't get around very well anymore. Then they moved up under his knee with an amputation. Then they came all the way up to the hip. So for several years he dealt with that, and then he died from blood poisoning in 1911 from all the complications. People love to call it the murder weapon, but his hot temper is where his problem started. So that infection ate him away, ate up the last few years of his life for sure. And then Prohibition had started as this was going on. So Lim took over during the worst time ever. He opened our hardware store downtown. He traded mules and made money down there. So we've grown a lot over time. They actually bring our grain in here, and we make our mash and distill our whiskey in this area here. Now, when it comes to making whiskey, like I said, it doesn't get much sleep. We're in operation all the time. We normally spend about 3 weeks out of the year stopping production to fix any big thing that needs any fixing. And this year it happened to be some copper plates. We've got 4 copper column whiskey stills in the distillery there, and they're each about 40 feet tall. So they have 18 copper colander plates inside. And once we make our mash, we'll distill whiskey there. So these 4 whiskey stills, they don't seem like a lot. 4 whiskey stills, and we're putting whiskey all over the planet. That building has those 4 whiskey stills that are putting out about 25 to 42 gallons a minute, depending on is it one of the larger ones or one of the smaller ones that's making this whiskey. So we are able to keep up. When you've got 2 12-hour shifts that rotate, a day shift and a night shift and a day shift and a night shift all year long, it works out. Now our mash is made by taking corn, barley, and rye, grinding it up like corn meal or flour, adding a little cave water, cooking the grain, introducing our yeast and a little more water. We use a little bit of our old mash with the new, like I said, back on a starter when you're making sourdough bread. You combine all this stuff in a big tank, about 40,000 gallons deep, and you let it sit and ferment for about 4 days. That yeast is eating away at the grain. It starts attacking the sugar, converts to alcohol. During that process, we basically make beer. It's a high-proof beer, around about 10% alcohol. We're going to drain or drop that sour mash and start feeding it up into the tops of those big whiskey stills. And as that mash starts to fall through the colanders, steam is rising up and will begin to separate the mash and the alcohol. That alcohol vapor is going to be captured, cooled, and condensed. So that whiskey I sprayed all over the palm of your hand comes rushing off at about 30-ish gallons a minute. There's a lot of mash left over. It takes 5 gallons of mash to make 1 gallon of Jack. So all that leftover mash, that spent mash, goes up to the back side of the property, up to Slop Hill, and the local farmers come get their slop and take it home and feed it to the cows. So all the cows are happy. We're happy because we don't have to waste anything. The farmers love their cows to have it. And now we're going to go in here to see where that clear whiskey goes next. We do make our own whiskey barrels, but we don't make them here. We got 2 places off-site, a spot in Trinity, Alabama, which is a couple hours south of us. And then we got a spot up in Louisville, Kentucky. Our Brown Foreman, which is our parent company, they are in Louisville. And we got a few sister companies like Woodford Reserve and Old Forester. We got some tequila and some Irish whiskey. We got about 20 different sister companies. So at Brown Foreman, there's a cooperage there where they make barrels for the family. So a lot of our barrels are made in Kentucky, but most of our Jack Daniel barrels are actually coming out of Trinity, Alabama. The cooperage there makes barrels only for Lynchburg. So as soon as the empty barrel gets here, we fill it up with that clear whiskey that's been charcoal filtered, and then we'll let Mother Nature and that barrel just sit and work together for about 4 years. Sometimes it stays even longer. Soon we'll be releasing a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old whiskey. That's not something that we do a lot. Those are small batch whiskeys. Not a ton of that whiskey was produced. But normally somewhere between 4 and 6 years, the color, the aroma, the taste is perfect, and it's time to bottle the whiskey. So like I said before, 100% of the color and most of the flavors coming from that whiskey barrel. So we're going to go watch a short video to see the coopers put the barrels together.
The barrel tested for leaks and inspected under a cooper's watchful eye. At long last, the barrel is ready to receive its whiskey. It'll go in clear with a hint of flavor, but emerge mature with a rich amber color and a warm, robust taste we all know as Jack Daniels.
What was so special about that whiskey? The distiller that ever actually lived on property while he was distiller. So Mr. Lim actually lived in the big white house and built this barrel house in the backyard when Prohibition was done. So this was built in 1938 when Prohibition was over, and it had been done for a few years in Tennessee, or for a few years around the states, but here in Tennessee it was a little bit longer before we came out of that. So it was 1938 when Lim Motlow cranked it back up and started making Uncle Jack's whiskey again. So he built this barrel house 3 stories high. It held over 6,000 barrels. on the hill earlier, they hold over 20,000. That was not necessary in 1938, but this was a lot of whiskey to have sitting out in your backyard, right? So make our way through the tasting. If you're not smelling and tasting what that piece of paper says, you're not doing it wrong. Everybody's not going to get the tobacco and the caramel and the vanilla and the mint and the citrus and the floral. Everybody doesn't get that. That's fine. You're not doing it. Obviously, you seem to know that your families and friends very well. You probably already know you don't always agree on the same stuff when you're eating, when you're drinking, whatever. So the same goes with the whiskey. Now, you do have information on the first four, but not the last one. The last one is the special treat, and I'm going to tell you about it when we get to it. Some whiskeys, y'all didn't come out here and throw them back. You kind of missed the point if you're just slinging them back. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to sip them. I'm not here to tell you how it's done. If you enjoy your whiskey with Coke or ginger ale or giant Pepsi or as a shot, that's fine. The responsible way is the right way to enjoy our whiskey. So however it is responsible for you, you do it the way you like it. But to be able to sit and taste and compare the five and learn about the five, you want to kind of sit through them. Now, and something that you probably already know is your sniffer is got a dominant side, and sometimes that changes. So you want to kind of smell on both sides of the whiskey to really get used to it before you put it on the tip of the tongue. And kind of taste it and chew on it and swish it around and move it around. You cannot share your whiskey samples as we do this. If you didn't come out here to sip whiskey today, I'm fine with that. I'm not offended at all. Whiskey's not for everybody, but you're in a dry county and we are very, very lucky that they let us do educational tastings down here. So that's all they let us give you. If you have more than that, then I'm in trouble because y'all are my responsibility and one individual gets that. Loved it so much that he would hold our whiskey up in front of the crowd and all his faces and all his shoulders. Every night our whiskey was there, and he would call it the nectar of the gods. Told everybody, this is the nectar of the gods, it's the best whiskey in the world. So what do you think all these favorites?
How cool was that to be able to get the twice barreled? Wow, we were so lucky to be able to get one of the special release 2022 limited edition twice barreled Jack Daniel's bottles. That was definitely the highlight of our trip. Thanks so much for joining us. We hope you had a great time with us here at the Jack Daniel's Distillery. If your travels bring you to Nashville, Tennessee, just remember the Jack Daniel's Distillery is just a short drive away, a little bit over an hour and 15 minutes from Nashville, but definitely worth the trip. And remember, you haven't traveled unless you traveled with the Q's.